Have you ever wondered how much gold and XP a creep wave gives? Or what will give you more gold and XP, farming a neutral camp versus a creep wave? These are great questions and also kind of hard to answer because neutral creeps and lane creeps change naturally throughout the game. But what changes about them? At the start of the game, creep waves spawn with 3 melee creeps and 1 ranged creep. When flagbearer creeps spawn every 2 minutes, they replace a random melee creep from the wave, so they don't add or subtract to the total creeps in a wave. Every 5 minutes, a siege creep spawns along with those 4 creeps. As the game progresses, the quantity of creeps goes up. At 15 minutes, all lanes get +1 melee creep. At 30 minutes, another +1 melee creep. At 35 minutes, +1 siege creep. At 40 minutes, +1 range creep. At 45 minutes, all lanes get a final +1 melee creep. After 45 minutes, a creep wave consists of 6 melee creeps, or 5 and 1 flagbearer, 2 range creeps, and 2 siege creeps every 5 minutes. With siege creeps, that's a total of 10 creeps in a creep wave. This obviously increases the amount of gold and XP a creep wave gives, but the amount of gold and XP a single creep gives changes as well. Creep stats upgrade throughout the game, and this includes lane and neutral creeps. Both get stat upgrades every 7 minutes 30 seconds. First, let's look at the upgrades that are given to lane creeps. Melee, ranged, and flagbearer creeps receive stat upgrades. Siege creeps do not. The wiki states that flagbearer creeps do not receive the stat upgrades, but simple testing shows that they in fact do. When lane creeps receive a stat upgrade every 7 minutes 30 seconds, already spawned creeps do not receive them. Only newly spawned creeps from then on. The only similarity is that they all receive some sort of gold bounty increase. The health and damage upgrades are applied a maximum of 30 times, and the gold and XP upgrades have no limit. That means their health and damage are fully upgraded at 225 in game time, which is 3 hours and 45 minutes. Now for neutral creeps. Like mentioned before, they also get their upgrades on the same 7 minute and 30 second timer. For them, the stat upgrades are the same across the board and not specific to certain creeps like the lane creeps were. So a hill troll priest gets the same stat upgrades as an ancient black dragon. When neutral creeps receive a stat upgrade, all already spawned neutral creeps instantly receive the stat upgrade. So you can be in the middle of clearing a camp and it can get upgraded. Neutral creeps, like lane creeps, have a similar maximum of 30 times they can receive stat upgrades, but their gold and XP are limited to 30 upgrades. So, as you can see, giving a single value for how much gold and XP a creep wave gives is complicated. Those numbers change depending on how far along the game is. What we can do though is focus on the amount of gold and XP creeps give in the early game before their first stat upgrade, pre 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Have you ever noticed the little money number that shows up when you get a last hit? If so, you might have also noticed that this number isn't always the same, even when killing the same type of creep. That's because the bounty each creep can give is in a range. Values in parentheses are the averages. So why is this? Why isn't the amount of gold they give always the same? Well, I wasn't exactly sure, but I found this great comment on Reddit that gave some reasoning for it. Apparently, it's a mechanic that's left over from Dota 1. It creates micro fluctuations in the gameplay pace and story by changing the timing that characters acquire items by fractions of a second that open up windows of opportunity for players to experience a less formulaic and predestined game state flow. So basically, it adds some variation to the game rather than having this mechanic be so predictable. Pre 7 minutes 30 seconds before creeps get their first stat upgrade, on average, a creep wave without a siege creep can give 155 gold and 240 XP. With a siege creep, it's an average of 220 gold and 328 XP. For simplicity, these values don't consider the extra gold that flagbearer creeps can give. So now that we have some values to work with, let's see how that compares to some large neutral camps. This will also be before any of their stat upgrades as well. There is 6 different large camps that can spawn, but let's say 7 because the troll camp can spawn 3 skeletons, which will change the amount of gold and XP it gives. There's the troll with skeletons, large satyr, hellbear, warpine, wildwing, large centaur, and troll without skeletons. Neutral creeps are similar to lane creeps in that the amount of gold they give is in a range. Here are the large camps ordered by the average gold they give, and wow, would you look at that? They just so happen to be in the correct order. I definitely did not do that on purpose to save time editing. As you can see, all camps are actually pretty close to each other in terms of how much gold they give. The highest amount of gold is tied between the troll with skeletons and satyr for 104 gold. And funny enough, the lowest is actually the troll without skeletons for 89 gold. So if you're really trying to get as much gold as you can, consider letting the troll summon the skeletons before clearing the camp. Now let's see them ordered by the XP they give. The winner again is the Troll with Skeletons with 186 XP, but this time the lowest is the Wild Wing with 142 XP. If we bring back the gold and XP a creep wave gives, with and without a siege creep, we can see that both give more gold and experience than any large neutral camp, by quite a bit too. Let's look at the ancient camps. This one's easy peasy because they all offer the same gold and XP. And for the first time, the creep wave compares a bit differently to these camps. The creep wave without a siege creep gives less gold and XP than any ancient camp, while the creep wave with the siege creep gives more gold and XP than any ancient camp. So, what can we take away from that? Well, a creep wave will give more gold and XP than any neutral camp other than ancients, even if the creep wave has no flag bearer or siege creep. And now we know some of the camps that give the most gold and XP. Hopefully that helps you decide which neutral camp to farm, or deciding between a neutral camp and a creep wave. But to be honest, that decision oftentimes shouldn't be based solely off of these values. You'll also want to consider things like which farm is safer, which will allow you to apply more pressure on the map, where your team is playing at. All of these things are just as, if not more important, but still, I think it's fun and valuable to know these small things so you can try to maximize your farm and gameplay in general. Now that we know how much gold and XP we can get from lane creeps and neutral creeps, let's talk about leveling up and how sharing XP from creeps works. Every hero needs the same amount of XP to level up throughout the game. When a creep is killed, XP is shared evenly among all allied heroes in the 1500 radius of the creep. If it's a neutral creep, then it doesn't matter which team got the kill. The XP will be shared between every hero in the 1500 radius of the neutral creep. An interesting thing about this though is that when sharing XP, sometimes there's XP that's not given to any hero, and is instead lost forever. Let me explain. We know from earlier that a whole creep wave in the early game without a siege creep is 240 XP. Well, if two heroes share that XP, you would think that they would each have 120, but they don't. When each creep's XP is split, it rounds down. The remainder is never used and is gone from the game. You can see that here. It's the end of the first creep wave, and if we look at how much XP each hero has, it's 118 instead of the 120 that you might expect. Something that kind of makes up for this odd mechanic of XP essentially being destroyed from the game are outposts. Every minute, they give 2 times game time worth of XP if you have at least one outpost captured. At 1 minute into the game, about the time the second creep wave will die in a side lane, you'll get 2 XP from outposts. So when your mid laner is spam pinging you to leave their lane because you're soaking their XP, they probably don't even know that you're also destroying XP from the game that they would otherwise be getting all to themselves. Don't tell them that though. So far, we've been talking as if no one denies creeps. When a creep is denied, the enemy only gets 50% of its XP. This is why we often see players using a spell to secure the last hit on a range creep, since the range creep gives more XP than melee creeps. The last thing I want to go over is how the gold and XP is changed for stacked neutral camps. When a neutral camp is stacked, the newly spawned neutral creeps gain a status buff that shows which hero stacked the camp. This buff has 2 effects. First, when these creeps are killed by an ally of the hero who stacked them, the hero who stacked them gains 30% of the gold they give. This bonus gold is not subtracted from the gold the ally receives, and is not granted if the stacking hero or an enemy kills the stacked creeps. Second, the stacked creeps grant their killer 15% less gold and XP than they normally would, even if it's the hero who stacked the camp. Thanks to everyone who subscribes, watches, comments, shares, and all of that. It makes me really happy to see the continued support. Hopefully you liked this video, and if so, consider giving it a thumbs up and maybe even subscribing so you don't miss any more videos like this. If you have any recommendations for core game mechanics that you want me to go over, or anything else, let me know. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something new with me.